Welcome back from the kitchen. We'll take you there later on in the day. But let me tell you who will do the talking this morning. Kojo Poku is a known face, regular here on the show. He talks a lot about energy. Kojo, good morning.
Good morning.
Hope you're doing great.
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good too.
I like your tie.
Grateful.
Whoever did it for you, I want one.
Yes, DK Clothing. He is at Medina. Such a great guy.
Okay.
Great
Nice.
guy. I speak to him. He does a lot of local stuff. He uses local stuff to do local stuff.
That's good.
Welcome once again. And then J.Jackson is also a known face. He's always here. Anytime it has to do with business, he's around us. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Hope you're doing well.
I'm good.
Great.
I'm good.
Great.
Feeling optimistic.
Okay. Right. It's good to be. But a quick one before we jump into the main discussion. Now, this story on the General Telegraph, the World Bank suggesting that Ghana is the best place to do business in West Africa. How would you take this?
I'm not surprised.
That the World Bank is saying that?
Yes, but look at Nigeria. The economy has collapsed. The naira has collapsed. Look around you. Well, Cote d'Ivoire is doing fairly well, but it's still coming out of a very bad war scenario. Of course, the Ebola destroyed the economies of Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea. So are we surprised that in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king?
I see.
So we are not surprised, but that does not really. It's to say that we are the best among the worst.
Is it a correct picture?
It is the truth. I mean, no one is surprised that we are the best amongst West Africa. But West Africa is setting a particularly low standard now. That's the issue, setting a particularly low standard. But and it may mask the risks that this economy does face. But it is true. Nobody can dispute that.
I see. Could you? So Joe is suggesting that because of, Ebola destroying Liberia, Sierra Leone, and other countries, Nigeria in a mess. Perhaps that's why the picture here looks quite good.
You see, in West Africa, we have the Anglophone and the Francophone. In the Francophones, the French, they do business in the Francophone country because of easier language for them to do business in. So the France and all those will naturally go to the Burkina, Ivory Coast, and the Francophone countries. The only emerging market in West Africa in terms of Anglophone is Ghana and Nigeria. Nigeria has its difficulty in terms of being a destination of doing business. The only reason people endure the Nigerian economy is because of the size of the economy. There's oil, business size are big tickets. So if you are trying to do a business in Ghana and it's for $5 million, you are looking at $50 million, $100 million, $200 million in Nigeria. So you would, even though it's not conducive, you will still endure because of the margins you tend to make from Nigeria. So if, like my brother said, in the land of the blind, if we are trying to say that we are among the best in West Africa, the best is really low standard. Right. What we are striving for is for us to be compared to the indices of Europe and Asia, because Asia is the new game. So if we can compare with Asia and try to do better, then that will set the goal. But for us to compare ourselves with likes of Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea-Bissau, it's not the best.
I see.
So yes, for us, yes, we are the best in terms of what we have now.
Let me ask you this before I ask J.Jackson. How should we take this from the World Bank? Should we say that, we're okay, we're doing what World Bank says we're okay, or perhaps looking at the background of economies in West Africa and the fact that we all agree that we are the only one with sight in the land of the blind, we should be cautious and rather tighten what we're doing so that we don't slip further.
Well, you see, the heading says that we are the best place to do business. It doesn't necessarily say that our economy is in best footing. It's two different. You have to look at the indices that they are measuring to know what they are. You see, in terms of trying to register business, in terms of having permits, conduciveness to get a business started, Ghana rates very high, even on the African continent, because of the friendliness, the ease in which you can get some of these documentation done. Ghana ranks very high. But in terms of when people do come and set up the business, 1 year, 2 years down the line, do they go back? And that's the problem.
Or they stay?
They don't, because when you now realize that the economy is not as conducive So in terms of the environment to do business in, yes, we are conducive. But World Bank saying this and the paper saying that, oh, it contradicts Akufo-Addo and Bawumia, I don't see how it contradicts them. I don't think Bawumia will say that Ghana is not the best place to do business. What they've been talking about is the state our economy is in, and that's completely different issues.
All right. So we should take this World Bank report and looking at the West African sub-region, the economies we have, and try and better the environment for doing business, or should just relax. We have been told we're doing good, and so it's okay for us.
Listen, there's a World Bank report out, the review that was done, and it lists and catalogs a number of risks that this economy is still facing, related to debt, relating to a number of issues. So, well, in West Africa, we are the best. Fantastic. Do we have problems? Yes. The last thing you want to do is to relax. That's the absolutely last thing you want to do.
Okay. Let's move on to this one, and deals with the energy issue. The Daily Graphic this morning talks about ECG's press conference, current power outages, not doomsday. And it says the ECG has announced that what we have, or what we're seeing around your homes, isn't not doomsday. The company tries to explain the reasons for the outages. It talks about the fact that ECG's equipment had to undergo regular maintenance while they were impromptu shutdown of the bulk supply points and substations due to emergency faults. The director of operations additionally said that the faults are as a result of some accidents on some ECG lines and transformers as a result of construction works and distraction of transformers to steel copper cores. He goes on and on and on and says that, for instance, during the last weekend, the Malam bulk supply point and Bachuna substation faced some challenges which required immediate attention, causing power outages at some parts of the western and eastern parts of Accra. So simply, it is not doomsday. Could you let me again start with you? The NPP has come out to suggest that because we may not be managing the sector well, it is likely doomsday will come back. So the past few days of these outages seem to give the impression that indeed something is wrong. But ECG says that is not the case.
Well, I think the two are separate. Look, I would be surprised if the ECG press conference yesterday was in response to what MPP said in their press conference. We have genuine situations where lights in the country have been going off. We've had localized, be it what they want to term it, localized faults and outages. We've had that. Nobody can dispute that. And they have come out to now categorically say that, look, these are the challenges that we are having, and we are on the front burner of it, and we are solving the problems. Now, I don't have a reason to doubt ECG when they come out to say these things. The issue of doomsday or load shedding, so be it, is really to do with GridCo, not ECG. So if anybody wanted to basically respond to the MPP press conference in terms of what MPP said, what they said was that it was like a warning. If you listen to the press conference, they are saying, look, there are certain things that are being done. If that trajectory is not stopped and we continue on that line, we would end up in doomsday. I mean, what are they saying? One, you have a scenario whereby we don't have gas because we owe Ghana gas and we've not paid. We don't only owe Ghana gas, we owe NGAS. We're not paying NGAS. So NGAS has shut the pipe. So West African Gas Pipeline, we don't have any gas coming through. So there are two debts in the front of the fuel that we use. Ghana Gas, about 350 million. NGAS, over 300 million. Those debts are there. Then instead of finding money to pay some of these debts, what are we doing? We're importing crude oil. Crude oil at the cost of about $30 million every 4 months. Because when we bring in 600,000 barrels, it lasts us for 4 months, depending how it is used. So every 4 months, we are spending $30 million. Right. In a year, that computes to $90 million. Can we afford to be spending that much money to bring in a very expensive source of energy? When you now use the crude oil to produce electricity, what happens? You are generating electricity, depending on the efficiency of the machine. You're looking at about 25 cents to 30 cents per kilowatt hour. What is residential paying now? Residential is paying 34 pesos thereabout, which works out to be about 9 cents, give and take what the exchange rate is. So you look at a scenario of you are using crude oil to produce electricity for, let's say, 25 cents. Residential is paying 9 cents. There's a 16 cents shortfall in every kilowatt hour that you are producing.
Right.
So that means the debt which is sinking the energy sector is being increased. And what the MPP press conference, the way I understood it, is to mean that if we continue piling on these debts, money is obviously a problem in this country because we have debts we can pay. So if we don't stop what we are doing, we are going to end up with doomsday because we're going to get to a point where we can't afford to supply the money anyway. So the ECG press conference, yes, to address the outages in the system is welcome. They've told us that, look, if you have a problem, dial the number that you have. They are going to have standby third-party contractors to respond to these things as soon as possible. I think it's just two different issues, so we shouldn't confuse the two.
All right. And so for what the EC is saying, for you, it doesn't signal the doomsday that perhaps the warning that is being given.
Well, like I said, doomsday is not to do with ECG. Okay. Doomsday is to do with Gridco because ECG only distributes what is given them. When we have a generational shortfall, the people who will be doing the press conference, that is why the chairman, the head of Gridco is the chairman of the doomsday committee. So they will now tell you what the shortfalls are. We do have shortfalls in the system. Let's not kid ourselves. One thing that I'm taking away from all this is that when the president said that he will fix the problem, 2 months to his tenure, to election, he hasn't fixed the problem. They've managed the problem. Because in terms of...
We don't have enough generation capacity?
We have generation capacity, but we don't have fuel. You see, the problem has changed. In 2012, we had generation capacity. From 2012 to now, we've installed a lot of machines, bringing in the car power, bringing in the Marys, the CNETs, and all that have come online. But now, we've had all these generation capacity. Where's the fuel? It's luck that now Akosombo, by God's grace, is rising. Akosombo is now around 77 meters, which is like 6 meters below 71. So above 71, which is the lowest. So Akosombo is seemingly okay now. But the issue is, because there is now another challenge which the president has not been able to fix, which is the fuel problem.
Money to buy
the gas, money to pay for the gas that we're supposed to use. Because bear in mind, as a country, we decided that we are going to go thermal. And thermal gas was going to be the bane and the main supply of fuel. And these gas that we've used, we've not been able to pay for them. Because we don't only owe N-gas, we owe Ghana gas. So it's a problem. And money is at the bottom of all these.
Okay. I'm grateful. J.Jackson, so ECG's issue can be understood. They have challenges with equipment. But the warning by the NPP that if we continue this trajectory where we don't go to pay what we owe N-gas and Ghana gas in order to get more gas to power our plants, but rely on buying fuel, crude, we will run into trouble. It's something that we should think about it.
Definitely, it is a warning that should be received and thought about. What the warning implies is that I have a debt. I'm not paying that debt. I move and buy. I move to another supplier and incur even more debt from the other source, and you are piling debt upon debt, right? As an economist and an analyst, this is scary. It's scary because we're already worried about our debt situation. We're worried about the slowdown in the economy, and we're worried that should the systemic power down, which we know as doomsday, come back, the implications for the economy are dire. So it's a risk we're facing. Obviously, we've had quite a few shutdowns over the last few days. ECG says it's not doomsday. It's neither here nor there. Really, it's not doomsday. Fine. But there are long-term issues to be addressed. What we've done is we've papered over the cracks. We're going into an election season, and I'm sure we'll come and sit here in January with facing all manner of issues. Those are the risks we face.
So it is not over, at least, from what you've just told me.
Well, you see, anybody who thought Doomsor would be over in a season is a joker. What we have is we've had problems that have built up over a long time. They are not going to be waved away in one season. They're going to be managed, and if we face up to the problems, fix them slowly over time. That is really the truth. For me, any talk about waving a magic wand and Doomsor disappearing is political talk. The reality of the situation was that this situation did not arise. It was years and years of underinvestment in our energy sector, right? And piling up debts, not facing. One of the challenges you face now was what my colleague here talked about, what Kojo talked about. The cost of electricity in the domestic scenario is too low. And forget all talk about subsidies, etc. It's way too low.
How much we're paying is low.
Pardon?
How much the consumer is paying
is low. Is low in international terms. There's a school of thought that ECG is inefficient. If we privatize it, it would improve. But I don't think there's any improvement coming out of efficiencies of improvement in efficiencies in ECG or Gridco are going to wipe out that. Then there's a debt that has to be paid. So there are serious challenges there and decisions that must be taken. Unfortunately, one thing I can guarantee you is this. In this political season, where we are, less than 2 months to an election, those decisions will not be taken.
In terms of increasing the tariffs?
Or what are we doing as a nation? Listen, it is okay to say we were going to keep tariffs low, but what is the cost? And it's a choice that we as a country must make. Are we prepared to keep the tariffs low, or are we going to increase tariffs? It's a choice we must make.
The NPP says if it wins power, it will reduce the tariffs, electricity tariffs.
Hey, on other fora, I've been speaking on the NPP's manifesto, and my challenge is that manifesto at the beginning catalogs fairly well the dire nature of the economy. My problem is that then they switch to making certain promises where really it's tough for me to understand how they're going to fund those promises. That debate is still ongoing. But it's political season. It's promise season. Hey, I promise you a district, a hospital. I promise you a district, a factory. I promise you a district, a bank. That's the political season. Let me tell you something. Even the politicians are shocked when we believe what they say, because they themselves don't believe what they say. So please, don't talk about promises. I see. I mean, the promises are we're in the promise season. Everybody makes a promise. I mean, how much should credibility, for example, should we give that chairman of the party in the region who comes out to say, all the non-bank finance houses have gone bust. We'll pay everything in full, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's making a promise upon the promise. Hey, guess what? My advice to well-meaning Ghanaians, don't believe the politicians. Don't believe them. They'll come back and tell us in another season that things have changed. Don't believe any, and I'm not saying this with regards to any political party. Any political. I just say don't believe the politicians. At this moment, they'll promise you anything to get you your vote.
Let me add something small to what Joe said. You see, the debt which is being piled up. You know, on 1st January they passed the energy levy, which was supposed to go to retire the debt, which is it. That levy is now what is being used to import the crude oil. So instead of retire the debt, you are importing crude oil with that levy. And not only the crude oil is coming in to now also add more debt because of under recovery. So we have two types of now in the energy sector. You have the non-payment of bills by the SOEs and the MDAs, okay, the ministry, department, and agencies. They are not paying their bills. They've never paid. Even the order to put the prepaid meters in the Burma camp, the prisons, did not yield any results because they didn't accept them. Okay, so now there's still debt that is piling up on non-payment of bills. Then there is the under-recovery, which is we are generating at a higher cost and we are paying at a lesser cost. So that debt is also piling up. They won't tell me and you now, because like my brother said, it's election year. Come January or come February, there will be a new budget, and that is when they will actually tell the local, this is what the real nation debt is. Then you go on to look at the second scenario, which will be the issue of when we decide to now bring in some of these reforms. At what time? Are we going to do these reforms now or do it after election? And that is why some of us are very careful that if you do not take these pragmatic issues now, it's going to come back to hit us in the future.
So any talk about reducing tariffs is dangerous.
Well,
In the situation
it is already low. We can't reduce it than it is, because bear in mind, it's been reduced. You see, when, to me, I think the talk of we'll reduce it was when, before July.
Right.
Before
When
July,
they were
when they were high. Look, the 15th of December increment, all of us argued that it was right, because like my brother said, we are paying too low. So 15th December, we all argued that it was right. But the 1st January increase, which is the energy levy that was introduced on the taxes that came on, that is what became unbearable. So to me, if we go back to the 15th of December levels, I think we should be okay, because we cannot afford the under recovery, which is sinking the BDCs and the downstream sector.
Kojo, I even have a slightly different opinion. I have a completely different opinion. We have a choice that this country can make, which is that we can decide that we will groan and moan and gripe about the level of tariffs that we pay. The result of that moaning and groaning is that all of us will have to end up paying more, because we'll resort to generators and coal, because we will not be able to keep up generating in bulk terms, which is cheaper.
At that rate.
So you have a choice. You can decide that ECG rates are too high. That's fine. But remember that when there's a collapse, because ECG is not paying Gridco is not paying VRA, and we are not paying the PPP projects and so on and so forth, and we have a shutdown, we all resort to either sleeping in darkness or using more expensive generators. It is a stark choice we have to face. It is a really stark choice. It's not going to be an easy thing, because the populists and the others will say, oh no, the rates are too high already. The rates are too high. It's ECG that is inefficient. It's Gridco that is inefficient, and so on and so forth. But bottom line is this. In Ghana today, on every kilowatt hour we produce, we take a hit. Yeah. That is the truth. We have a choice. We can continue to say, let's use our money to subsidize power, or we can face up to the problem.
I'm grateful. Let's move to Daily Graphic this morning and deal with some court issues here. The Supreme Court orders EC to give signed results to party agents. That is the story. It says that the court has directed the commission, that's the Electoral Commission, to furnish agents of political parties with coalition seats containing signed, declared results for presidential and parliamentary elections. Now, it says the provision should be made on the parliamentary elections results collation form, that is Form 1, and on the presidential elections result collation form for the names and signatures of the returning officers at the constituency collation centers, the candidates or their reps or counting agents. Now, the issue here is that the court says that what it has granted give the parties the opportunity to go into conference and correct mistakes on them. We're told that when it is done, it will stop what we saw at the 2012 election petition and correct these things. Some have said it's a victory for democracy. Let's see if that is the case. Joe, let me start with you. And is it indeed a victory for democracy? In 2012, we saw that issue becoming quite the focus of the court sitting, the fact that collation papers were not available, and so if there were mistakes on it, the agent could not correct them. This time, the court says, give them to the agents or their reps, and if there are mistakes, they can correct them before eventually being sent to Accra. So, victory for democracy. That's what some have described it.
It is. I actually don't understand why the ECG we've been talking ECG, so I went back. The EC even contested the issue. The last thing we need is another election where there are allegations of rigging and we may have to go to court. That's the last thing this country needs, right? We must have an election that both sides of the divide, when I'm talking about those most likely to win, can accept the results and move on. So, listen, I agree with the Supreme Court. I like what they said. I think it makes sense. And I think the EC should accept it and just move on.
I'm glad. I mean, if you read the story, it says that Mr. Justice Atuguba commended both lawyers for their effort and inquired if the EC made an input into what was eventually arrived at, to which I think the people who went to court said, yes, indeed, the EC made that input. So suggesting that indeed the EC was part of the whole process, and it's not like they contested it.
Well, they must have contested it of some sort. Otherwise, the issue would not have gone to court, and they wouldn't have given a ruling, and they wouldn't have been ordered. That was the term. So, well, all's well that ends well. I think the issue has ended well. Both parties are happy,
right,
and we should move on.
I'm grateful. Could you?
Well, you see, my take on this is sad, in the sense that, we have a house that makes laws. That's Parliament. We have the framers of laws, the Attorney General, in consultation with EC. How did this come about? There was CI 75. We saw the trial on TV, the Supreme Court trial,
right,
and we all saw the flaws that were in CI 95. Yes. And the court said that, look, let's go and make amendment to our electoral processes. And the amendment to our electoral processes was to give birth to CI 94. CI 94 comes out and it's even worse than CI 75.
So it's Parliament.
No, it's not. It's Parliament and the framers of the law, which is Attorney General. So you now ask yourself, Parliament on the 15th of August 2016, the Committee on Sub-Judiciary moved this on the floor of the House, and it was passed, the CI 94. The committee did not see some of these things, that in CI 94, presidential representatives are not allowed to be given these sheets. When I saw Akutu Ampau's prayer to the courts, I called a friend of mine who's a lawyer. I said, thank God for this man, because what the man is saying makes sense. Every person, the barber, the hair salon, who washed the court, realized that we need a copy. The parliamentarians saw that their representatives at the coalition center gets a copy, but the presidential does not get a copy. And they were okay with it. Why? Because what is going to happen at the end of the day, if this thing was not checked, the guy will say that, why have you given a copy to the parliamentary person? I want a copy. And the man said, I won't give you a copy. And what they tended to say in court, like my brother said, they contested it in court. Their contest was that it is implied. The EC's lawyers' contest in court was that, we didn't need to put in specific that they should also give the presidential representative because it's implied. What is the implication about it? You put it in black and white, the same way you've done for the parliamentary candidate. You don't go and say that, for the presidential it's implied. You look at other areas of CI 94, which goes on to look at electoral fraud. In CI 75 and earlier CIs, it categorized clearly what constitutes electoral fraud. In CI 94, what did they do? They referred to PNC Law 284. Why? When you have the opportunity to categorize and list what electoral fraud is, why are we referring to PNC Law 284? What was the hurry? Didn't they have time to type? So to me, I think it's a victory for democracy, but it's a shame on the parliamentarians, the people who sit on the Judiciary Committee, the framers of the law. It's a shame on them.
And so this opens our elections more for more freer and fair elections, I guess.
Yeah, it does. But you see, anytime you put out laws that is whenever it's tested in court, it is found wanting. It gives everybody. That is what we have in the problem now. Everybody is going to court because they realize that when the framers of the law put them down, there are always loopholes. So that is why everybody is now in court. Now there's over 8 cases in court, if not less or more. And that is why, because somebody takes the CI 94 to court, he's won a victory and court has amended it. What is stopping Joe or I from saying, okay, we've seen something we think is not right, let's go to court? If people go to court and they realize the law is robust, then it deters, because you know that, the framers of the law had a lot of thinking, a lot of thought into it, and anytime it's gone to court, it has been tested. But this is not the case.
Okay, so in the case of the Nakmudrajman Rawlings, we're told she lost the very first one due to some technicalities. That's what the lawyers are saying. But she's back in court, also challenging her disqualification. For you, the main issue people are concerned about here is how these court processes with the EC will impact on December 7th, the date for the elections. You still believe that after all these, we'll go through and vote on December 7th?
Well, it's a worry. I mean, we are it's very tight. My prayers and the lawyers who are handling these cases is having a toll on them. Because imagine it's one set of EC lawyers that are handling all these cases, and the courts are sitting till 6. And before, lawyers have 14 days to file, and the opposition, the plaintiff files, you have another time to also file.
Yeah.
In this instance, because of the short of time, average of time, you have not even seen the other person's file, and the court is asking both of you to file your arguments at the same time. And these lawyers are filing day in, day out. And I mean, it's having a toll on them, and the level of argument they might be able to make, nobody knows. But on a current issue, let me say something. What we are all relying on, and most of these people are relying on, which is the main crack of their case in court, is that they should be allowed to alter. Okay?
The mistakes that were on there. On the form.
I want to say something here. If you are given a form and you fill the form and you sign the form, there's a small print which goes to show that you are okay with everything on that form. That's why you've signed. If you present the form and you are giving me a phone number, and phone numbers are supposed to be 10 digits, but they are 9 digits, I can bring your attention that, my brother, the phone numbers you gave me on the form, please change it because it's wrong. You are giving me an address. The address does not look right, or it is spelled or something. Then I can call you in to change. Not when somebody has given information of an individual and the individual has signed. When you sign against something and it is wrong.
You mean it is wrong?
It means it is wrong. So when you see,
it should not be changed.
No, my point is that there is difference from error and stuff like that. But you see that most of these things, that's why when the EC chairman first made the press conference, he said that there were going to be criminal proceedings against some of these people.
The CID has
because there
started.
is criminal intent. One person cannot be registered in the Volta region and at the same time be registered in the Central region. Somebody who has been disqualified from voting and not on the electoral roll should know that they conducted such an act, so they are not on electoral roll.
So if they go on to sign anything,
yes,
suggesting that they are on the roll, it's a criminal act.
Well, if it's a criminal act, I'm saying that is subject to the law. I'm not going to call it a criminal act. But what I'm saying is that there is issue of whether people, because most of all the cases in court, Indum and now going to do PP, Ayariga, and now Mahamatu is going to court,
Dr.
PNC is also going to court. All the crack, the bank, or they're making it that they should have been given opportunity to amend. Amend what? You falsify information. What are you going to amend?
All right. The court will deal with it. So let's talk about that before we jump to Otumfuo's admonition to chiefs. Nana Kunedu's court.
Here's the thing, right? And I agree with Kojo 100%. But if other parties were allowed to amend,
do corrections,
then we should be fair to all.
But PPP were given a chance to amend.
Yes, but that's the point. And that's the point they're making. The PPP were given
the opportunity to amend. Yes.
Yes. What happened to NDP?
NDP, I don't know about the NDP issue.
You see, so here's the thing. Right now, let's not preempt this case.
Okay.
Right? They are in court. My worry is this. It's not about the court cases. It's not about the time. It's about the timing. USAC is threatening to go on strike.
USAC is
the Judicial Staff.
Oh, okay.
Judicial Staff Association of Ghana.
Yeah.
If they do go on strike, the process comes to a halt. Then, this whole timetable, which is already on a knife edge, becomes impossible. So there's a time bomb that is ticking, and this time bomb has been ticking for a long time. It's not new. Their demands are not new. What we should be doing now is addressing those demands clearly. Because if they do go on strike, and if you go back to your previous newspapers, I think from late last week or so, you will see that they are threatening to go on strike.
Yeah.
And if they do go on strike, then we can forget about the election on the 7th of December.
You are scared of a hang state.
Well, a constitutional crisis.
Okay. All right. We'll get there and see how we cross the line. But let's go to the Ghanaian Times this morning. The Asante-Hene is asking chiefs who want to engage in partisan politics to abdicate their stools before they do that. Jackson.
Listen, here's this case. Right? Until someone can show me what the penalty, effective penalty is for engaging in partisan politics and show me that it has been applied, forgive me, all this talk is just talk. Right after Otumfuo said this, the Asante...
it's alleged that Asante-Hene endorsed Nanado.
Yes, of course, the story is one of the papers.
Alleged that Asante-Hene has endorsed Nanado. We've heard chiefs on radio effectively telling because this is a public event. So when a chief says, we support you, he can't be talking about himself.
Yep.
He's encouraging
his
people to support you. It is a public event. Attending, he's sitting in state as a chief. It is not a private conversation in his house. The Constitution says don't do it. But what is the penalty? So long as there's no penalty, they will continue to do it. And all this will remain talk.
We should be thinking about a penalty.
What is the penalty? So we've heard, for example, that 58 chiefs in an area have endorsed Nanado. We've heard chiefs in the north endorse
Mr. Mahama.
President Mahama. What are their House of Chiefs doing? What is the effective punishment? Hey, the way I see things, 58 chiefs have endorsed Nanado. I'm sure NDC is looking for 59 chiefs to come and endorse them. and it will happen because there's no punishment.
Yes.
And no amount of, well, maybe those chiefs that are directly connected to Otumfuo will be afraid of his wrath. and other punishment. But I don't think the rest care.
I see.
So until you tell me and somebody can show me what the effective punishment is the law. It is there. It was written with the best of intents to keep our chiefs above a certain level of criticism, etc., that comes with engaging in partisan politics. Our chiefs are not supposed to be insulted.
No.
Yes? The very nature of partisan politics means that it's me against you.
Yeah.
There's a thin line between an insult. I mean, when you call someone incompetent, are you saying are you insulting the person or not?
Or even you can't say a chief is a liar.
No, you can't.
You can't call a chief a liar. But once you engage in partisan politics, all these issues come into play. And we would love to have our chiefs remain above the fray. And if there were instances where we were going to descend into violence, etc., have them play a role of being able to call all the parties together and help bring about peace. In the last election, we saw Otumfuo call the parties together and get them to agree to accept the results, so on and so forth. We would like to have the same role played by our chiefs, especially our more illustrious chiefs. But is there any punishment for endorsing anybody? I don't know of it.
I see. Because if there's no punishment, then we are in trouble. They will go on and on and on. Joe suggests that perhaps the NDC is looking for 59 chiefs with endorse.
You see, I have a problem with, I think the law should go further to say certain things. Like, when you go into a town, the first call in a town is to the chief.
Right.
You go into any village, the first call is to the village. So why are you saying that politics, the chiefs cannot be part of politics they are partisan politics,
right,
when they are the politics? Because when you go into my village and your first point of call is to the village, is to the chief. You go and you tell the chief what you intend to do for the village, blah, 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 and you do your rounds and you go. Because in the village, the gossip in the town is the gossip from the palace. So everybody now asks, hey, Hennessy saying, saying. Then what people now say out of the palace now becomes the order of the day.
Right.
So if we really, the same way we say that the president in the presidential emblem cannot do campaigning. If he wants to campaign, he has to move out of, he cannot use state cars and blah, blah, blah. I think that if political people are going into areas for partisan politics, they should not call on chiefs first. Because it now takes, because what you see is all these endorsements and all these sayings of chiefs comes as a result of when people visit them in their palace.
That was to break our tradition.
Oh no, but if it is stated, now if I go to visit, if it's stated that that is the case, then it would excuse them, because that is how it comes about.
But Kojo, I have a little challenge. I'll take Otumfuo. Both sides of the divide have visited Otumfuo.
Have called on him.
I believe that Otumfuo, as a citizen of this country, will vote and he will make a choice. But no one can accuse Otumfuo of endorsing one or the other. We may suspect that Otumfuo has certain leanings, but I cannot state anything here on this platform as a matter of fact. And he's a Ghanaian. Yeah. Each one of us here on that day has to vote, and we will make a choice, regardless of him sitting here and having to be fair and non-partisan in addressing the issues. On that day, he will go and exercise a vote. He will make a choice. So, and all along this period, he's making up his mind. Right or wrong? Yes,
it's interesting.
It's true.
Are you not making up your mind?
You're making up your mind. So you will have a leaning. At least you will say, if in order not to involve you in any trouble, let's say you'll be leaning towards Trump or leaning towards Hillary. But you'll be leaning somewhere.
Okay.
But that is different from sitting here and saying, viewers, vote for Trump. That's a completely different argument.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is this: I can go visit a chief. I can participate in a Durbar. I can do, but if the chief sits in there and says in a public event and encourages his people to vote for one or the other, then he's engaging in partisan politics.
Okay, interesting there. We'll have to, I hear Otunfo is a patron of commercial Asante Kotoko, but he has a soft spot for Accra Hearts-Folk.
Why would you say that? He's the embodiment of Asante Kotoko. So how would he have a soft spot for? He's the embodiment.
That's okay. The chairman of the FA has a club.
Yes.
But we have to assume
there's a joke out there that the first time he became Asante Hine, Kotoko played Haas, and Haas scored. So he now asks that he goes to the loo and eats himself. So when he went there, they, yes! then came out and sat you know. But let me use your platform to say something small, please. The police and the GPRT, they're not the MTTU. Okay. You know the Zongo, the MTT, yes, the Zongo Junction, Madina Zongo Junction in the evening. The small trotro drivers hijack that traffic light.
Oh, okay.
And the amount of traffic that it causes on that road going to Adenta and all the environs is unbearable. Yeah. We are begging them.
They are virtually taking
when you just
right
cross the traffic
the
light,
right.
There is encroachment by trotro and taxis. So it makes the 3 lanes becomes a 1 lane. Instead of them moving into the offside to now use that lane, we are begging the police and the MTT.
The Madina MTT, and the office is right closer to the
Junction, my brother. Yesterday, I spent 30 minutes in that traffic. So we are begging the MTT and the police.
We get our guys to go there and speak to the Madina MTT. It's really horrible that Zongo Junction area there. Kojo, I'm grateful. Kojo Poku is an energy expert. Grateful for your time this Friday morning. J.Jackson talks a lot about business and finance. Grateful too for your time this morning.
Thank you. It was good.
Yeah, it was good talking to you. Have a good weekend.
You too.
And then we'll see you next week.
Yes, and vote for Trump.
Yes, we'll vote for Trump. All right.